that accessibility is the very important key. But I'm also disappointed with our federal DOT and some of our officials. Have they forgotten about accessibility? What customers use is Accessoride, buses, the subway. How they forget about us? How could they? We voted them in. Why we need to vote for them? Why? I am very disappointed that these officials say, oh, they're going to help accessibility. Prove it. I want to see proof. This is the new MTA, not the old MTA. And I'm just tired of hearing the old, they always discuss the past, but nothing moving to the future. And I hope our future will move forward, which we are, with accessibility. And I mentioned to them about accessibility. And you know, it's always a speech. No, how about showing pictures where we got done for 6 years, getting things accomplished? Accessibility is important. The future of accessibility rides with us. Thank you, everyone. Have a great afternoon.
Here you go.
The next speaker is Jason Anthony, followed by Omar Vera.
Thank you, Sophia. Good afternoon, Jano, Jamie, Jason Anthony, the transit guru, with some facts. What the federal government did to the Empire State is a slap in the face. Because over the weekend, we saw a viral video of let's say a certain congressman of a certain political party, which we're not going to name for security reasons, was in a gathering promoting a high-speed rail project. It is still a very popular project, and we had constituents bullying this congressman along with the newly minted United States Department of Transportation. What a shame. But New York State is not going to be bullied by the feds because New York is the Empire State. And yet again, we demonstrated that congestion pricing should be a national model. And 2 cities was going to implement this, Boston and Chicago. But we have seen elected officials, state, city, and federal, join conspiracy theories without facts. The MTA in these past 6 years has shown facts. We should told them, watch this. I'll see you guys on Wednesday in Grand Central Madison.
Final speaker is Omar Vera.
Good afternoon, MTA CPOC committee. Hey, welcome. First, let me express my disgust with the federal Department of Transportation for pulling their support on this much-needed congestion pricing program. We're already showing just 1 month the positive benefits that congestion pricing has had on the streets of Manhattan, Manhattan south of 60th Street, and it's a disgrace that the anti-public transit group, I would say, is trying to undermine all this progress. But like I said, you gotta stay firm and defy all the naysayers. Congestion pricing is here to stay, whether they like it or not. Okay. Another thing I should discuss is I noticed that there's some option 1 R211 like subway cars that are about to be delivered here. I'm like, it's really good that we're finally moving this forward, because like I said, the R46, for all the glories I have in the past, have got to go. It's way past time, and we need to modernize the system. We're trying to work towards a system where every subway car is NTT, New Technology Train. So this is a step in the right direction. With that said, thanks for having me here, and I'll see you guys around. Take care.
Thank you. This concludes the public speaking session.
Thank you, and thank you to our public speakers for your participation and for your supportive comments. Copies of the January committee meetings have been distributed and are available on the website. Changes or comments, anyone? Hearing none, may I have a motion to approve? Thank you, Mr. Albert. Thank you for the second from Mr. Bringerman. All in favor, the minutes are approved. Any changes to the work plan?
No, no changes to the work plan, Chair.
We adapt, Mr. Albert, we adapt. We adapt to what's available. Okay, go ahead.
No changes to the work plan, Chair, and thank you. I'm happy to give my my president's report along with my colleagues this month. Great to be here. Lots of work to report on. Big weekend of work at Jamaica, fourth busiest rail station in the world. Our board member was mentioning to me just before this meeting. And we're in the midst of eliminating that Jamaica crawl with, in this instance, improvements to hull interlocking, which made a lot of progress this weekend. Lots of information on that in our This Week in Construction newsletter, which you can sign up for at that URL at the bottom. Chair's favorite newsletter.
Yeah,
so,
and I just want to,
yeah.
if I can interject a comment. The reason that we started this was that we want the public and stakeholders to see every week what was accomplished in the last week, because obviously we continue to have outages, impacts to service, and folks need to see the results of that of those efforts. So anyway, back to you, Jamie.
Thank you. My clicker doesn't seem to be working with me here. Do you want to? Oh, okay, there we go. Somebody click along. Do you want? Can we switch while we're in the midst of this? Thank you.
Send it down.
Oh, I guess we don't need to switch if that one's not working. So February is when we typically do the year in review for C&D and the look ahead. And of course, while there are major funding questions to be answered, we continue to do the work at construction and development that this agency was created for, to execute the program better, faster, and cheaper, to plan for the future of this vast system of ours, continuing to transform it to meet the needs of the 20th century, including different customer expectations, climate change, in addition to the need for a state of good repair, and to build a sustainable organization that has the professionalism, the specialized skills, the management expertise to deliver far into the future. We're going to deliver our strategic plan later this week, summarizing all of this, but I want to give you a preview of it today. So first of all, looking back and setting our targets for the year, in numerical terms, we achieved $4.6 billion in commitments last year. I want to start by saying that this exceeded our target that we set for the year of $2.9 billion by 60%, through a lot of hard work at C&D to get those projects over the finish line and awarded. Of course, this number, as you can see on the chart, overall is less than we aspired to before the complexity of implementing congestion relief slowed us down last year. But nonetheless, we have some really important work that got awarded last year, and at very good pricing. 3 stations, ADA stations in the Bronx for Metro North, Woodlawn, Williamsbridge, and replacement and state of good repair work at Botanical Garden for $157 million, big project there. Line structure component repairs, we've talked a lot about tunnel structural repairs and the importance of them in our next capital plan, but we awarded a project to do that on the 7th and 8th Avenue lines in Manhattan and the Bronx. And I want to note that we're going to add cell service through our public-private partnership with Bolden as we do that structural repair work as well. Park Avenue Viaduct Phase 2, which the board voted to award that additional work on. Evan's going to talk about that in a little bit, but it allows us to do the other half of the viaduct that carries 98% of Metro North service into and out of Grand Central as part of this current project, saving a lot of time and a lot of money. And the infrastructure to support battery electric bus charging at 6 depots. This is enough to support the first half of the battery electric buses that we've awarded in the last year. Yes?
I'm sorry, but
You really want to interrupt him in the middle of the presentation?
it's part of that little piece right there.
Okay.
Is the Grand Central train shed part of that line structure
It,
piece?
It's not. The Grand Central Train Shed is a project that is awarded and is moving, Sector 1. But also very important work. This is line structures within the subway system, where there's a huge amount of work that we need to get done. All right, here we go. Big commitment year this year. Now that congestion relief is unlocked and we are able to proceed with the projects that we need to do, some key commitments that are not congestion relief funded, critical component repairs. This is state of good repair work at fan plants across the system, fully electrifying track 1 of 11.5 miles of the Hudson Line, adding critical redundancy and operational flexibility, and dehumidifying the main cables of the Verrazano Bridge. We've talked about this a lot here in this committee. This project is going to preserve the cables that hold up the Verrazano and extend the life of the structure by decades. So $12.6 billion commitment target, that would certainly be the biggest commitment year ever for the MTA, and we're moving forward in a big way to get it done. Big forward movement for congestion relief funded projects this year as part of that $12.6 billion target that we're announcing today. We've already awarded 22 dual mode locomotives for Long Island Railroad, 270 more battery electric buses. That option has already been exercised, funded by congestion relief, and we've got big projects moving. We talked about it a lot, the re-signaling of the Fulton and Liberty lines, the A and the C, that's 42.7 track miles, really critical to get service moving on that line. Of course, the 2nd Avenue subway tunneling contract, for which the RFP is out in the market. At the moment, we're aiming for a summer award of that project. ADA packages for 5 stations moving forward. The 3 stations that are in our package 9, Parsons Boulevard on the F, Briarwood on the E and the F, a newly added station to the program, Gates Avenue on the J and the Z in Brooklyn, and then 2 stations at Bryant Park within that complex. 18 more stations to go on top of that that are funded by congestion relief. In terms of completions, some generational projects, very complex and some long delayed, that C&D took on and tackled and got across the finish line this year. We finished that most difficult 100th of 100 original key ADA stations at Hunter College and saved money in the process, both from avoiding utility relocations and bringing the project in under budget. At completion, we finished rebuilding the Harmon Shop for Metro North. We rebuilt 207th Street Yard, made it much more resilient. It's the 2nd largest yard in our system at 43 acres, and we built a flood wall and dealt with all the drainage around that yard, kept service running the whole time. We made bridges accessible for bridges and tunnels, Cross Bay Bridge, Henry Hudson, and connections to Manhattan and the Bronx from Randall's Island, with the Queens section to be completed in a separate project in 2027. So some important completions. And for this year, we'll complete $9 billion of work. Big ADA project at Borough Hall that is improving that station. I think we talked about this in detail last month, but you can see, that is the wall of Brooklyn Borough Hall, a historic building, to the right in that picture. But we are rebuilding the station right adjacent to it, and also improving the streets, Girolamo Street, at the same time, in cooperation with the city. We will complete the big ADA package for Long Island Railroad. We've already got 3 stations open and fully accessible in that package, 3 more to go, Laurelton, Locust Manor, St. Albans this year, plus replacements at Valley Stream and Auburndale, and more work on the Verrazano Narrows Bridge, the Verrazano Bridge. So that's our target for this year. In the meantime, the work continues to get the 25 to 29 capital plan off to the right start once it's authorized and fully funded by the governor and the legislature. While we have some work left to keep us busy here, we have put forward a $68 billion plan that enables us to move forward with critical state of good repair work that cannot wait. We're taking on some of the key capital maintenance issues that threaten safe and reliable, frequent service across the system. So a lot of projects are moving into design, and we're looking at the big upfront scoping and bundling decisions that determine whether we can execute this work better, faster, and cheaper with the time that we have. We're also spending a lot of time engaged with the public. We hosted our 5th open house at the White Plains Public Library last week with Assemblymember Shimsky, new County Executive Ken Jenkins, to talk about what's in the plan and get some feedback about the Metro North portion of the plan up in Westchester. Wrong button. On the subject of better, faster, cheaper, I did want to dive in a little bit, highlight our work rebuilding the A service and the shuttle service to the Rockaway Peninsula, which is being done under a long-term service disruption that we're working closely with our operating partners at New York City Transit to get done. As a reminder, there's one point of access for service to the peninsula. It was disrupted during Sandy through wave action, storm surge, and the impact of debris in Jamaica Bay. And the structures that are part of that, known as the Hamels Y, which is the viaduct structure on the Rockaway Peninsula, and the South Channel Bridge, which you can see in the front of the picture, that carry service are decades old and are reaching a state of disrepair that is threatening service in the long run. So we made the difficult decision to take out service temporarily, to fully demolish and rebuild the Hamels Y and replace all of the mechanical and electrical equipment on the bridge. But here's where another structural innovation from C&D comes in. Believe it or not, due to some institutional barriers at the old MTA, these two projects were going to be done separately, which threatened more disruption of service for a longer period of time. So we took a big step back and we identified that this was not the way to go and combined them so we can get all the work done in a $600 million mega project that keeps that disruption to a minimum. Certainly don't like any disruption of service, and we've poured on a ton of replacement service, shuttle buses, cross-honoring, other means of transportation, keeping the shuttle active on the Rockaway Peninsula itself. But we're doing it in the most efficient way, and we certainly will bring that service back before Memorial Day. A few good shots here. I'm pleased to say that the work during the outage is progressing at an extraordinary pace. You can see the old concrete and steel structure. This is just 1 month ago when we started. Once we took service out, we quickly demolished the track bed, all the electrical and signal equipment that ran along the top of the viaduct, and so the Hamels Y was no more. This concrete structure that I'm showing here was sitting right above where this gentleman is standing in the foreground. That was very quickly demolished. But just a couple of weeks later, our team has already rebuilt much of the structure. One big section will sit on steel girders, and as of Friday when we were out there, 30% of those steel girders already had been put into place. Another portion of it, the concrete section of the future structure, was prefabricated off-site, which is a great innovation in construction means and methods, and has already been dropped into place on top of the pile caps and is ready for all the equipment to follow. The South Channel Bridge has been lashed into an open position so that, as you can see, the maritime traffic, which includes shipments of jet fuel for JFK Airport, can continue to traverse into Jamaica Bay. And all of the mechanical and electrical systems on the bridge have already been demolished and are now being rebuilt. We're on track to bring service back on time and on budget before Memorial Day. That's thanks to the extraordinary project management from our team, which is led by Deirdre Harvey, who you can see holding court at right, and the occasional visit from myself and a very frigid Demetrius Critchlow, who was a little less excited to brave the cold and win with me last week. But we endless amounts of respect for the workers. All forms of labor are out there working, and they're working 2 10s 7 days a week. So we've got 20 hours of work happening every day in the middle of the night. Get out to the Rockaway Peninsula, the temperature falls by 10%, and the wind picks up by 10 or 20 miles an hour, and the work is getting done despite all that. We're very proud of how that project is going. What's all this strategic planning and innovation about? Cost containment. And we want to talk about that in more detail this week. Like our operating agency partners, we are committed to being great stewards of public funds. The big innovation of creating construction and development is the prime mover here. The kinds of cost containment we've talked about, that I've just talked about, are only possible because we have centralized management of all capital work, from planning to procurement to delivery. we take responsibility for it from beginning to end, and it allows us to intervene in the places where we need to in order to get the work done better, faster, and cheaper. We've got results, and we're going to make a fuller presentation of the board on Wednesday, but we can now identify more than $3 billion in tangible savings from each stage of the work since 2020. That's money that has gone directly back into resignaling more territory, making more stations ADA accessible, preserving more of the hundreds of miles of track and structure in our system, and it keeps going. What it's allowed us to do, again, more detail on this on Wednesday, with the 25 to 29 plan is to deliver more for less. Like the MTA operating budget, the new MTA capital plan is a 4% reduction in real dollars when we control for inflation. And we're getting a lot more done despite that. You can see some of the highlights here. Despite that 4% reduction, a 2.5 times increase in the number of power substations, almost a 200% increase in the number of railroad bridges, 100%, 130% on railroad stations, lots more signal miles, lots more pump rooms, lots more buses, lots more subway cars, all of that getting done for 4% less because of the way that we're delivering. More to come on that on Wednesday, but we wanted to give that preview to the committee. And I've asked our executives who run the big C&D departments responsible for planning, budget and program management, contracting and delivery, as well as our chief administrative officer, to give you some more detail about how each of the departments is supporting those cost containment efforts. And so with that, I'm going to pass it on to Alyssa Cobb-Conan, who runs our planning department.
All right, hi everyone. So one of the biggest things we can do to save time and money is to pick the right projects in the first place, and that starts by identifying the right assets. Our 20-year needs, as you all know, looked at the big picture over the long term and determined we have a lot of work to do just to keep the system running. And why is state of good repair relevant for cost containment? It's because it's the one way that the MTA can make sure we don't have as many breakdowns and emergency repairs, which of course are far more costly, let alone disruptive, than doing capital work in an organized way. The 20-year needs resulted in our proposed 5-year plan that's focused on state of good repair. In the 5-year plan, an important metric we set was not just the proposed budget, but also what the public would get from the investment. And what I mean by that is asset by asset, we're projecting state of good repair outcomes at the end of the 25 to 29 program. On the upper right here, you see our famous, in our minds, Sankey diagrams where we show you where on state of good repair we were in 2020, what the 20 to 24 plan was supposed to get us, and where we anticipate we'll be at the end of the 25 to 29 program, assuming both how much work we get done as well as how quickly we anticipate the assets will continue to deteriorate. This predictive model is new and helped us to identify the right scale of investment and helps us to prioritize which categories need more investment than others. It also has the benefit of giving the public a deeper understanding of what they're getting for the dollars spent. And getting our assets into a state of good repair is not the only factor in picking the right projects. We need to be smart about the scope. And one way is to anticipate the risk. Climate and weather have cost us countless hours of service delays, and that's why a project like the Hudson Line is important. Here we've layered on more than one criteria, state of good repair and weather. So when we say we need to address resilience on the Hudson Line, it means that when we rebuild the 25 plus culverts on the Hudson Line that are already in poor and marginal condition, we're building them to the right size so that we don't have major washouts that impede service. And another way to build smarter is to make sure we're planning for the function that the asset serves. So by way of example, we've all heard about Livonia and 240th Street and that the conditions there are deplorable, but also that the layout of the facility is obsolete. And 240th and Livonia are part of a much bigger system of shops and yards that encompass over 440 acres in New York City, built 100 years ago and by competing subway lines. With subways, we'll be redesigning Livonia and 240th so they fit into the overall system, improve efficiency, and deliver the best possible service for New Yorkers, making way for CBTC on the A division. We're excited to take on this kind of work across the portfolio, implementing an integrated planning approach to help ensure that we spend money wisely, deeply understanding the condition of our assets, and layering on what we need to do to modernize the system, to build it for another 100 years of service, adapting and anticipating ridership trends, and where public and private and cross-agency partnerships can be found across the system. With that, I'm handing it over to Stephen Lohr.
Thank you, Alyssa. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Stephen Lohr. I lead the development department here in C&D. And what we do is really take the priorities identified by planning and our operating agencies and package that work together into contracts for optimal execution, hand them off to Evan. So when we do that, we consider a whole bunch of different factors: work synergies, schedule conflicts, capacity of the industry, our own resources that we have to manage, many other things. And much of this optimization occurs through what we call bundling. We've talked about it many times here at CPC. One of the key goals of bundling is ensuring that whenever we take a portion of the system, whether that's a station, a segment of track, out of service, that we're getting all the work done that we need to get done during that period of time and not coming back over and over again, disrupting customers, adding costs. So to do that, we need to strategically plan ahead up front, and that's the mission of our group right now as we launch the next capital plan. So before I get to that, in the current 2020 to 24 plan, just to talk a little bit about this, bundling has allowed us to dramatically scale up the level of work, the pace of work in areas like ADA stations, as you see here, a fourfold increase in the number of stations that we have awarded because we've made these larger contracts and it allowed ourselves to scale up as we deliver. It's also allowed us to save money by leveraging economies of scale in these contracts. So a great example are escalator costs, where the unit cost of escalators have decreased by more than 20% by virtue of awarding these together in larger contracts. That's the kind of work we want to continue seeing as we go forward into the next plan. But we are 5 years into this, and so we've graduated to sort of the advanced level course of bundling, as we've been saying, getting a little more sophisticated, getting creative, and learning some of the lessons from the 2020 to 24 plan so that our bundling work isn't just about creating bigger projects now, but really creating better projects. And so we've been launching the next plan by systematically going line segment by line segment, laying out all of the needs and breaking down some of the traditional divisions between types of work that we've usually planned around as we go forward. So a couple examples of that, I'll give you two. Our ADA projects, they typically include electrical work just by virtue of having to include an elevator. We've realized, hey, while a contractor is here that does this type of work, if there's a circuit breaker house at the end of that platform, they could just as well take this on. Traditionally, we would consider that to be an infrastructure project. It's part of our power system. It'd be a different thing. But we've broken those walls now to say this is a contractor capable of doing this type of work. Let's pick it up here. Similarly, when our infrastructure unit repairs structural defects within the tunnels, they could just as well repair columns on a platform of a station that they're passing by, which, again, traditionally that would have been a separate stations project. So we have up to 10 so far. We're still working through the later years of the program, up to 10 of these integrated bundles. Shown on the screen here is just one example on the Nostrand Avenue line, where we have component work at 5 of these stations, 2 ADA station projects planned, an escalator replacement, and then structural defects all along the line. Traditionally, this would have been 4 separate projects, all sort of competing for resources and access with their own jostling schedules. Now this will be one integrated project, all executed simultaneously. We're also doing this kind of work on the railroads. So on Metro North, where we absolutely must deliver more in the next 5 years, we've been developing the 25 to 29 plan as a series of 3 major construction programs, each with their own integrated schedule. It's the Grand Central Artery, the Hudson Line work that Alyssa alluded to briefly earlier, and then shown here, the stations of the Harlem Line that we've talked about extensively. We need to get 14 stations rehabbed. We'll be doing that in successive waves, immediately following one another over the course of the next 4 years. We have one master plan for that to make sure that we get it all done. So it may sound basic, but it's a very significant shift in the way we organize our work, and it will yield tremendous benefits, both in terms of minimizing disruption, which is key, and in terms of reducing our costs. So we're very excited about that. Not least of which Evan, who gets to contract out all these bundles for us.
Great. So in our contracts group, we're giving a lot of attention to updating our contract documents to address cost risks and raised by our consultants and our contractors. So during our procurement process, we encourage questions, comments, proposed alternative contract language, and we regularly meet with contractors and consultants, both individually and through industry groups like the GCA and the ACEC, to hear their concerns. And through that engagement, we've identified numerous contract provisions that we've modified to remove historical language that is often one-sided. The most obvious of those was replacing the chief engineer provision. They were the sole trier of facts, and now we use a neutral arbitrator. But we've also addressed risk in other ways. One example of that is our new utility relocation risk-sharing provision, which apportions costs to the design builder only up to a predetermined amount. If there are utility costs above that amount, the MTA and the design builder share that risk up to another predetermined amount, at which point the MTA takes on the risk. So in this way, we've incentivized the design builder to keep costs down and at the same time limit its risk exposure for conditions that could not be anticipated. Another new risk-sharing provision provides for compensation for certain instances of delays caused by the unavailability of tracks or access to force account, which were historically non-compensable delays. We also have recognized that prompt payment is an important consideration, and we've implemented a process to provide quicker payments for directed change work. And we've addressed other issues that have been raised, like indemnification, standard of care, and insurance requirements. We've seen good competition since we've implemented these changes, and the 10.6% contract savings versus estimated costs in 2024 is, I think, recognizes these changes that we're making and the competition that we were getting. So we're also looking at getting the delivery model right. Introducing design build was transformative for C&D, but we're now evaluating contracts earlier. We're making wiser decisions about when to use design build and when to use other delivery models to best encourage competition and innovation. So we've been using A+B bidding to our advantage for smaller contracts and those where there's not much room for innovation. A+B bidding allows us to take into consideration schedule and track access. In evaluating best value, it also helps us to get smaller contractors involved, and that helps us to keep prices down. And on more complicated projects, we're engaging with contractors early, both pre and during procurement, to encourage alternative technical concepts and innovation. And one example of that, Jamie mentioned earlier, is the Park Avenue Viaduct, where the contractor, through its innovation, saved us $95 million in 51 months on the 2 phases of the project. Notably, this contractor did not propose the lowest price, but because of the schedule and track outage savings and other innovations it offered, it came in as the best value to the MTA. Another example of contract innovation is our accessibility packages. We've hit our stride on those. We were up to 6 bundles that have been awarded, plus some additional station complexes, and we improved those contracts with each iteration. We're seeing good competition, and design builders are seeking to participate in multiple packages. And the risk-sharing strategy that I mentioned before is one example of an improvement that was developed using these or during these ADA packages. We also awarded our first public-private partnership, which is going quite well and has brought us a new elevator supplier, Otis Elevator, which prior to this P3 was not proposing on our ADA project. So implementing new delivery tools is helping us to increase competition as well. On the ADA packages, we've seen savings bid versus estimate of $243 million since 2020. So with that, I turn it over to Mark to deliver the packages that we've now contracted for.
Thank you, Evan. I get to look over the design and the construction of our projects. So I'm going to give you a couple of examples of our projects and what's really changed over the last few years. I don't know if you realize it, but you approved a project back in December of 2022 called CBTC Crosstown. You approved $380 million to do that project. I don't think you realize that that was $300 million less than was expected. We saved almost 50% of the cost of that project by doing it differently. What we did differently was we got out of the way of the design. We gave the design and the construction over to one entity, a modern entity, a global competition on how do we do these projects better. We have saved $300 million. It's an enormous change in how we attack all of our crosstown and our CBT projects going forward, and it is a door that we are using for all of our remaining projects. What is very interesting about this project, and as we make improvements for the next, the second bidder in that competition didn't believe that we would do it. They didn't believe that we would make that change. We made that change. We've now got more bidders in the game for our next project than we've ever had before. That is a huge example of the changes we are making to deliver real value. Here's another example of real value change. We don't let any project out the door anymore without us pretty much ripping it apart. Why are we doing it this way? Why don't we do it some other way? And this is an example of someone asked a question, why are we putting elevators first to the mezzanine and from the mezzanine up to the platform? Why are we doing that? Why can't we just go straight up? Well, it turns out that it's just the code. It was an interpretation of the code that was stopping us from doing this. So we went and rewrote the codes with the state officials in New York, upstate, changed it, and has correspondingly have changed almost $250 million, have saved $250 million going forward. These are huge and real examples of the kinds of savings that we're making on all of our projects. Evan mentioned A and B bidding. It's accountability. How do we make sure that we get the value that we put into our bids and our procurement actually on the ground? In the past, what we would have done, we said to contractors, you can go build this project, as long as you do it within this number of outages, that's okay. Well, we changed that game. The bidders now have to give us the number of outages, the number of track disruptions, the number of issues on customers every day. How do they put together a plan, and what number of outages do they want? And if they don't stick to those number of outages, we bill them. We have completely changed the way we do our projects, and more to come. Thank you.
Put that last slide up, guys.
Can you put it back? Thank you.
Go ahead, Sean.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, committee members. I'm responsible for operations, and the functions include business partner for financial operations, people department, labor relations, diversity, contract compliance, facility, and corporate audits. As you are aware, C&D inherited numerous professionals with various areas of expertise. And as the capital program continues to grow, we recognize the need for our internal bench to include specialized and project management skills. One of the ways we are adapting is by building out our next generation of leaders capable of managing projects from inception to completion. The training program is one of those initiatives. It is designed to create a pipeline of internal talent. We currently have over 126 participants. 64% are engineers, 24% are project and construction managers, and 12% are in the architect field. They are involved in over 400 projects across our transit system, including ADA, signals, infrastructure, resiliency, to station rehabilitation. Some of the projects you've heard here today: Washington Heights Substation, Babylon Interlocking Signal System, Cherry Valley Bridge, Penn Station Access, Park Avenue Viaduct, and Long Island Railroad ADA projects in Forest Hills, Babylon, and Hollis. What we have observed over the past 3 years is that we have been able to retain over 92% of our trainees. We've increased employee engagement through professional development, mentoring, and succession planning. Our trainees have participated in track, signal, safety, and locomotive simulator training. They have also had exposure to systems within the rail and the bus control systems. They are currently working to complete their project management certifications, and as part of their career progression, we do require that our trainees obtain their FE, their RA, and their PE license, and currently 75% have completed their fundamentals of engineering. To capitalize on the momentum of this program and ensure that we have the right talent at the right time, we have recently advertised for our next team of trainees. Within the first week, we received over 558 candidates throughout the tri-state area and across the United States. One of our recruitment teams recently went to a virtual career fair at Stevens Institute of Technology, resulting in engineer students applying for our program in real time. The next pipeline of trainees will begin late spring. Our commitment to developing future leaders to managing projects has proven to be financially efficient in reducing labor costs by $11.4 million and lowering our dependence and reliance on external consultants. As our portfolio continues to expand, we will assess external hiring practices and continue to implement strategies to reduce costs. Thank you.
Great presentation, Sean. I came to the graduation ceremony, incredibly exciting to see literally hundreds of young people who are coming out of professional training, engineers, architects, construction managers, and who are joining the MTA. It's exciting. And this morning I went and took a look at the new passageway that we're opening up tomorrow for the Flushing line. And that project was done by one of Jamie's top guys, Matt Zetwalk, along with some amazing trainees. So again, those people are getting training. We don't just let them loose alone on a project, but they are being grown into an in-house project management force, which enables us to have much less reliance on frankly, consultants. And when I came in, just a small point of personal privilege, when I came in, a lot of the projects that we had that had a historical schedule problems were being run by consultants, right, Mark? Whose companies were being compensated for their time plus a markup with no cap. So the way that these things were structured did not make sense. And now, in addition to having our own in-house workforce, every consultant that's hired to do any project management function is that those contracts are being done with skin in the game. That if we make schedule, they get paid what they signed up for. If we don't make schedule, their ox gets gored financially. So we've changed the way that we use consultants. We're diminishing the use of consultants, but we've also changed their compensation structure. And I compliment Jamie and everybody on all of these. This is how you fix a system. This is how you get a capital program of our size to the point where I think we can begin to say this is the premier infrastructure development organization in the region, at least. So well done, Jamie.
That's it. The 5 people that have presented to you are the senior leadership of our organization, and each of them have, lots and lots of very talented, dedicated folks reporting them. The 6 of us spent an enormous amount of time together, thinking through these very complex changes that we're making, all of which are opportunities that are enabled by the creation of C&D, and we're really proud of what it's getting for us.
Randy Glucksman, followed by Mr. Herbst.
Thank you very much. Your presentations are always interesting. I enjoy watching. I have 2 quick questions. The first one is CP 19 to 25. That's the section that you're talking about on the Hudson line that you're re-electrifying. Is that correct?
Go ahead.
Freestone to south of Tarrytown.
Yeah, Tarrytown to Spuyten Duyvil, Riverdale
Okay,
area.
excellent.
Yep.
Question 2, the new charger locomotives that Long Island Railroad is getting, those are capable to go into Grand Central Madison?
The dual modes?
Yes.
Let's get back to you to confirm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Herbst.
Yeah, first, Sean, I was very impressed with the presentation you made and some of the information. The retention is a major issue that we're hearing from the engineering community on the private side. Are you in competition? And once you get them, how do you bring them in? The salary levels, is that some of the conversations you're having? Because I think once they're in the system and they're producing, they're going to stay. So it sounds very encouraging what you've told us so far.
Thank you. We have established across the MTA standard salary for our entry-level trainees, and that's including C&D, Long Island Railroad, Metro North, as well as transit. So I think that's working pretty well. I have to say, people are interested in the projects. Yes, we want to make money, we want to be competitive, but I think we have so many phenomenal projects. It gives them an opportunity to grow out their career, be well-rounded, and I honestly think that's what attracts people to public service.
Passion is there. That's great to hear.
Yes, absolutely.
Good.
But just, Mark, so you know, we're trying to get, the big picture is we're trying to get the whole MTA C&D workforce to what we call P25, which is sort of the 25th percentile, at least, of the overall private and public engineering and design manner. We're below that. But this is part of a broader change underway to try to recalculate how we relate to where the market is for a lot of these specialized disciplines. Mr. Gorodnik.
Thank you. First, congratulations. It's very impressive how you are taking every element of the process and finding ways to do it better. From the bundling to the design build to the taking aim at the contracts directly of consultants. I agree with Jano's point. This is exactly the way you want to manage the system. I had only two questions, which were really just follow-ups, because I think I may have just missed one point. On the Rockaway project, Jamie, you had mentioned that it was initially going to be done in two parts and that you had, I guess, bundled it together as a way to do it all together and save some money and time. Could you just say again what the two parts were going to be? Because I know you said it, but I think I missed it.
Sure. So what I was saying was that the entry to the Rockaway Peninsula, we have a bridge. We have a swing bridge called the South Channel Bridge that opens and closes to allow marine traffic into Jamaica Bay. You know, that's an old bridge, sort of thought about and looked after by one part of the MTA, and then both within New York City Transit. And then the Hamels Y, which is the viaduct that takes trains over. It's a structure thought about and looked after by another part of it. And so there is a logic where, we're organized in a certain way and it makes sense to do things separately. But it was clear to us because we're not asset-based. We are based on plan, package into a project, contract, deliver. From that perspective, it was clear it should all be done together, and that's why we made that move.
Okay, thank you. And then on the, Evan, the point you made about the savings on the Park Avenue viaduct, you had cited $95 million in savings and 4 years of time. Can you just say a little bit more about how that was done?
So this contract, you've seen that really cool video that we show probably a couple times now. This contractor had an innovative approach, and the key to his delivery was being able to work almost not every weekend, but on weekends, not during just long outages. The other proposers were thinking of the long-term outages that we could only give them, I believe it was like the July 4th weekend and Labor Day weekend to get a large portion of the work done. And being able to have these gantry cranes and to work on a regular weekend basis, although it was more money in their bid, the ability to do the work regularly saves you any risk associated with a delay during one of those long outages. You have to wait a whole nother year to come back and finish. So they reduce schedule and they reduce the cost of our consultants, our force accounts. So the overall cost of the MTA was considerably less, even though the bid price was more. So I think had we not, had you gone just a straight bid, they wouldn't have had the opportunity for the innovation. Had we just gone on low price, we wouldn't have gotten the best value at the MTA. I think looking at all those factors is what makes the new processes that we're employing so valuable to the MTA.
Is there anything new about the procurement rules themselves that allow the MTA to look at it that way and to say, hey, listen, we're not just going to go on the lowest bid, but we're going to go on the basis of all of the other factors that you just mentioned?
It's not new. I mean, for as long as I've been here, which is a fairly long time, there's always been a best value component where, with the board's permission, we can, and we had this sort of omnibus agreement that for design build, we have permission to use the RFP method, which is a best value approach. It's been here for a long time. I just think that we're taking advantage of it much more these days.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Mr. Brown.
Yeah. Son or not. But, I guess mark me down as someone who's always skeptical. I was skeptical when you introduced these changes many years ago, and I see now how the value of your learning experience, and you have more tools institutionally to go forward with the next bid and how you're going to structure the next bid, and you'll play it how it lays. And it's really impressive to watch this develop over time, and hopefully the numbers keep showing the results.
Mr. Herbst.
Stephen, just back to the conversation you had about the structure that use the example electrical for elevators coming in. You find a junction box down the. I just want to clarify. You're not talking about relaxing change orders. You're talking about strategically putting that in part of the bids that are going in. So you're looking at the entire facility before you put it in. It's all included in the contract. So just want to affirm that.
Yep, before we even started design, yes, up
Yeah.
front at the outset of the project. Here's what should be done as part of it, absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, this is a version of this, and maybe a little more extended version is going to be shown on Wednesday. This is not a coincidence. We're all above board here. At this moment, when the world is looking at our capital program, 25 to 29, we are trying to make sure we are communicating effectively on how we are using all the tools available to make those investments at the best value for the public, and that we are really being aggressive stewards of taxpayer funds. Jamie has done an amazing job with all these leaders that you've heard from today. And I just remind all of us to focus on that one slide that was shown in the middle, which is we're talking about a capital program which in real dollars is lower than the one we've just completed, but which is going to deliver dramatically more important work. And not only just more work, but work that will take the condition of key asset classes to a less dangerous place than they're in right now. And if we don't make those investments, if we don't prioritize state of good repair as our program proposes, those asset classes will continue to age, and the consequence is riders will get worse service, period, end. That is the choice that is on the table. But this team has done an amazing job of figuring out how, with a little less money in real terms, to make sure that at the end of the day, we actually give people a system where the power doesn't break down like it did, at State Street, the State Street substation, and then when I was at 59th Street a few weeks later, and people were stuck in the tunnels for an hour to an hour and a quarter, that we have that happen less frequently, that we don't have pieces of the structure in the tunnels coming down. We don't have, like we did have, pieces of an elevated train coming down on someone's windshield. All those things, that is what is, those kinds of get ahead of it investments are what is at risk in this capital program. So we hear a lot about congestion pricing. Everybody knows where we stand on that issue. But going forward, we have to get a capital program that allows us not to lose ground, but to make up ground in these key state of good repair categories. So look at that slide. That slide is really key, and it goes to the way that this team has prepared and thought through this moment. Really amazing work. With that, I'll take a motion. Unless there's any other comments or questions, I'll take a motion to do the procurements. I got to get out here in 5 minutes, so let's do it fast.
I'll second that. So this month, Construction and Development is presenting 4 competitive procurement actions totaling $17.7 million. The first 2, in the combined amount of $5.7 million, will address significant corrosion discovered on girders and columns at the 61st Street Woodside Station. The first mod addresses 2 girders and 2 columns that were encased in concrete, and the severity of the corrosion discovered upon concrete demolition that necessitated the need to replace them rather than repair them. It has been contemplated in the contract. Similarly, the second mod will direct the contractor to procure and fabricate 4 platform girders and some temporary steel elements where the deterioration uncovered was greater than anticipated. In order to mitigate delays from this work and take advantage of upcoming outages, the second mod will address the procurement of lead items while the installation costs are negotiated, and we'll be back to the board with that procurement when we finish that negotiation. The next mod, in the amount of $7.5 million, will resolve a claim asserted by Tutor Perini Corporation in connection with the Culver Line CBTC project, following an adverse arbitration decision. In that matter, the arbitrator ruled that TPC was entitled to additional compensation to modify and replace ties to sit level on the uneven existing steel structure, notwithstanding a contractual requirement that TPC survey the track in advance of ordering the materials. The last mod, in the amount of $4.5 million with Cubic Transportation Systems, resolves a dispute with regard to the mounting hardware on fare payment devices known as bus validators. The need for this mod arose after cracks were found affecting a large number of the mounting brackets, resulting in the bus validators falling off their mounts. There was a dispute between MTA and Cubic as to whether the failure of the brackets was a design defect or caused by MTA's maintenance of the bracket. The warranty provided by Cubic required Cubic to replace the defective brackets. However, this negotiated resolution provides for the MTA to receive an upgraded, more reliable bracket, an updated wiring configuration, and for the contractor to accelerate the completion of the outstanding change work. Through this mod, MTA is only paying the difference between the cost of replacement and the cost of the upgrade. And these items are described in detail in the staff summaries contained within your committee books, and I submit them for your consideration and vote.
Any comments or questions?
I have two.
Ms. Mihalcis.
I have two questions. First, on Evan, the first one, the cement, how long were those cement girders there that we just discovered them?
So they're there for a long time, but they're encased in concrete.
Right, so how do we discover them?
In doing work there, we broke out the concrete, and we
Oh, and then
expected
we
some
realized-
deterioration.
okay.
But when we
But
broke
not
out
the
the
extent.
concrete, it was much.
Evan, if I could add to that one, we couldn't get to them without stopping the trains. So we couldn't determine the exact rate of deterioration. So we waited until we stopped the trains during the project itself, and then we tested the concrete.
So where were, okay.
I would also, I mean, this is actually a better, faster, cheaper. This is what I would refer to as a good change order.
Sure.
Meaning, it's not like we screwed something up and now we're going back to fix it.
No, we didn't find
We,
it, right.
we were very careful how much did we scope. We didn't want to do too much destructive testing because it disrupts service till the contractor gets out there. Then we have the ability, when the contractor's identified that the steel's in worse shape than we thought, to go and put it into the contract so it gets done, so we don't have to go back 3 years from now
And then
and deal with that deteriorated steel.
Got it, okay. And then the second question, is Cubic responsible for, it sounds like they were
Yeah.
they at fault, or?
So,
Yeah.
so
You start, yeah.
Okay.
So the dispute, they
Because
claim
I'm
that.
trying to look at the Omni machines. I've seen them all, I mean, we use them all the time.
So there was a dispute. We claimed that it was a defective bracket, and they claimed that the cleaning materials that we were using caused the bracket to, right? But the resolution was for them to incur the costs that they would have incurred to replace the bracket. And in the meantime, they developed a better bracket that everybody wanted that we weren't really entitled to. So we paid the difference between the cost that it would have taken to install pretty much the same bracket with to install the upgraded bracket and some upgraded wiring and some acceleration. And then we got the benefit of the replacement of the bracket, as part of their warranty obligation. So I think it turned out to be a good settlement for both parties.
All the brackets reinstalled?
So all of them are being installed.
Okay.
Many of them were
Reinstalled.
breaking.
Yeah,
By
and I just want to
Cubic?
be,
Okay.
I just want to be clear.
Yes.
Nobody's getting away with anything here.
Okay.
We negotiated this. This was part of the settlement that we brought to the board. This is following up on that. And part of this was we negotiated timely completion now of the Cubic work, right? That was the big change order we brought to the board when we cleaned this up at C&D. This is part of that. Cubic has taken on the obligation to finish this timely and finish other work timely as part of this settlement. And as Evan has said, we're only paying for the upgrade because technology changes. You're in these long-term contracts and things change. So we're responsible for the upgrade that is going to ensure this lasts much longer than it otherwise would have.
And just if I could add that it's also going to save us, I think they estimated $16 million in maintenance over the
Right,
years.
with the new
So we're going to
brackets.
do better
Okay.
for having the upgraded system.
Blanca Lopez.
Thank you. So just for my own understanding, they're installing the new brackets, but we're maintaining it moving forward.
We maintain the buses after the installation, yes.
Okay. But they're installing.
They're doing the full install.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions about Omni brackets or otherwise? Okay. But it's good. We have to get into the minutia. I think what we heard is what we all want to know, which is that the people who are responsible for negotiating with contractors fight hard and come up with the best compromise. That seems to be what we accomplished here. All right, I'll take a motion on all of these procurements. Mr. Gorodnik, second. Ms. Mahaltzis, all in favor? Any opposition or abstention?
I would like to abstain from contract A 46030.
Okay, and I'll leave it to the professionals to figure out which contract that is. The abstention is Mr. Herb's abstention is noted. With that, the items are approved and move forward to the board. Motion to adjourn. Thank you, Ms. Mahaltzis. Thank you, Ms. Lopez. We are in adjournment.